Ask ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Llama the exact same question, and you'll get nearly identical answers. Not similar, eerily the same. This isn't because these models are all right. It's because they are all wrong in the same way. Here's what's happening. Modern language models aren't diverse thinkers. They're all trained on overlapping internet data, run through the same reinforcement learning process, and optimized toward identical objectives. The result: they've converged into what researchers call a kind of AI groupthink, all orbiting the same safest, most popular middle ground. Think of it like this. Imagine asking 1,000 people who have all read the exact same Wikipedia article to solve a creative problem independently. You won't get 1,000 unique answers. You'll get 1,000 variations on the same mediocre idea because they are all working from the same source material and the same mental starting point. This is becoming a genuine hidden crisis in AI development right now. Every major lab has built something technically smarter, but they've all built something remarkably, unmistakably similar. And that uniformity creates blind spots. If every AI system sees the world through the same lens, they'll all miss identical things. A startup just exposed exactly how deep this problem goes. So how did this happen? To understand the groupthink, you need to trace back to how modern language models actually train. These systems don't learn from scratch. They inherit the entire internet as their starting textbook. Wikipedia, Reddit, news sites, academic papers, Stack Overflow, all of it mixed together. But here's where it gets narrow. Once a model absorbs all that training data, it gets tuned through a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. A smaller group of human raters evaluate the model's outputs and score them good or bad. The model then optimizes specifically to maximize those human ratings. Now, those human raters don't represent all of humanity. They tend to cluster around certain demographics, geographies, and belief systems. They reward outputs that are safe, diplomatic, politically neutral, and inoffensive. So every major model, ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, Gemini, optimizes toward the same target, maximizing those human approval scores. The result is mathematical convergence. It's not a conspiracy, it's worse, it's a structural inevitability. All models are climbing the same peak, on the same mountain using the same climbing route, so they all end up looking out at the same view from the summit. Different companies, different architectures, same convergence. The technical mechanism behind this is surprisingly simple, but the consequences are enormous. When every model is trained to maximize approval from a similar pool of raters, they all learn to optimize for the same statistical pattern. Let's call it the approval pattern. This pattern is basically: be helpful, be safe, avoid controversy, give conventional answers to conventional questions. It works beautifully for customer support and general chatbots, but it's devastating for anything that requires genuine creativity, counterintuitive thinking, or novel problem-solving. Here's what researchers discovered. If you take two completely different model architectures, say one trained by OpenAI and another by Anthropic, and you run them through the same RLHF refinement using similar evaluation criteria, they converge on nearly identical output distributions. The diversity that existed at the raw model level evaporates during the tuning phase. It's like pouring red paint and blue paint into a funnel. Different colors go in, but the same muddy brown comes out every time. The funnel is RLHF, and the muddy brown is safe, conventional, middle-of-the-road AI. One research lab found that across 13 major models, the top 1,000 most probable word sequences had more than 80% overlap. 4 out of 5 most likely follow-up tokens are identical across different companies' systems. That's not diversity, that's monoculture. Here's what this looks like in practice. Ask ChatGPT to write a startup pitch, and you get a certain structure: problem, solution, market size, call to action. Ask Claude the same thing, same structure. Ask Gemini, identical arc. They're not copying each other, they're all converging on the most rewarded response template. Ask any major model what's the meaning of life, and watch them gravitate toward the same answers: connection, meaning-making, pursuing goals, helping others. None ventures into genuinely unconventional territory, because unconventional thinking doesn't maximize approval scores. Ask them to role-play a character, and they'll all hedge. Ask them to make creative leaps, and they'll retreat into safety. Ask them to take a position on anything contentious, and they'll dissolve into diplomatic equivocation, every single one, because their training penalizes conviction. Here's the twist. If you specifically instruct a model to be controversial, they will, but they all challenge assumptions in the same predictable ways. They've learned a single pattern for nonconformity. The result is AI systems that are simultaneously powerful and brittle. They are reliable until they are not, because when they encounter situations outside the approval distribution center, none of them have learned how to genuinely think. They've only learned how to simulate thinking that looks like what humans rated as good. To understand why this matters, imagine if every human in a company thought the same way. You'd have perfect coordination, zero conflict, and complete blindness to half of reality. Every meeting would reinforce the same assumptions. Every brainstorm would circle back to identical solutions. Groupthink is one of the most documented organizational failure modes. When everyone thinks alike, you miss obvious problems. You don't stress test your ideas properly. You catch none of each other's blind spots. Now scale that problem up. If every language model converges on the same mediocre middle ground, researchers building on top of these models are building on shared hallucinations. Entrepreneurs pitching to investors are pitching variations on the same idea. Policy experts analyzing complex issues are constrained by the same limited lens. Human civilization works because of cognitive diversity. Disagreement and debate stress test ideas and catch blind spots. Diverse teams outperform homogeneous ones on every measure. But today's AI systems are engineered for conformity, trained for consensus, optimized to agree. They are the opposite of what makes human thinking powerful, and we're increasingly building the future on top of them. The implications are staggering. If every major language model shares the same blind spots and failure modes, then systems built on top of them will fail identically, simultaneously. Think agriculture. When farmers plant one crop variety across millions of acres, a single disease wipes everything out. The Irish potato famine happened because of genetic monoculture. AI monoculture is the same risk. Imagine an economic model trained on multiple converged language models, all making the same fundamental error. The error gets amplified across all systems at once. There's a subtler problem too. If AI systems only learn within the approved distribution, they never develop genuine cognitive flexibility. They won't learn to argue with themselves, challenge their own assumptions, or think in radically different frames. We are training AI systems to be excellent employees in a single corporate culture, not creative or contrarian thinkers. And as these systems become central to scientific research, business strategy, and policy decisions, that constraint compounds massively. A converged AI monoculture makes sense when you want reliable, predictable outputs. But reliability and intelligence aren't the same thing. An AI that always gives the safe answer isn't intelligent, it's just well-trained to please. The hidden cost, diversity, is where innovation lives, and our AI systems are optimized to eliminate it. So what's the solution? The startup has identified the core problem. LHF creates convergence because feedback is too narrow, too few raters, too similar in perspective. Their approach is counterintuitive. Instead of broadening the rater pool, slow and expensive, they are redefining what good means during training. Rather than optimizing for one approval distribution, they are training models to maximize output diversity while maintaining quality. Traditional training funnels all different ideas into one shape. The new approach actively rewards thoughtful difference. They're experimenting with constitutional AI training models against principles, but instead of one constitution, they're exploring models with multiple, sometimes contradictory principles. A model trained to be helpful and challenging, safe and intellectually honest, agreement-seeking and contrarian. Early experiments show these models maintain quality while increasing output diversity. They give you different answers, thoughtfully different answers, not random noise. The mechanics work because the training process itself becomes about balancing competing objectives. A model that only knows how to please everyone can't learn this balance. A model that learns to embody tension between principles actually develops something closer to genuine thinking. It's not perfect yet. You can't just tell a model to think differently and have it work. But the direction is clear. The future of AI isn't about building one better model. It's about building systems that think differently from each other. Here's what this means for you. If this startup's approach actually works, it changes everything about how AI develops over the next 5 years. Instead of a handful of megacorporations shipping incrementally improved versions of the same model, we'd have a genuinely diverse AI ecosystem. That means different models would make different mistakes, catch each other's blind spots, and collectively behave less like a monoculture and more like a healthy, arguing, stress-testing community of minds. For researchers, it means better outputs for complex problems because you could compare multiple AI perspectives rather than running the same convergent model 5 times. For businesses, it means more creative solutions because the AI systems offering strategy wouldn't all recommend identical approaches. For society, it means AI systems wouldn't all fail simultaneously when they encounter edge cases the training distribution never prepared them for. And maybe, just maybe, it means AI systems that actually learn how to think rather than just learning how to please. The challenge is real, building models that are diverse without becoming unreliable, that think differently without becoming incoherent. But it's the right challenge to tackle. Because an AI monoculture isn't just a technical problem, it's a genuine civilizational risk. Stay skeptical. Follow for daily AI news. The next breakthrough in how AI thinks might just reshape what AI can do.